I have to fix this every single time. This feels so high. This doesn't feel... There we go. Wave. Let's see. All right, can you hear me okay? Hey! How goes it, people? Chiho. Thank you. I love your writings. Makes me happy. Thanks for joining me. Can you hear me okay? Is there sound? I don't know if there's sound or not. I don't know what this button does. Okay, that's the mute button. Good to know. All right. Are there filters? Oh, there are filters. I'm not going to touch that. That'll go terribly, terribly wrong. Okay, good. You can hear me. Very good. Oh, I shouldn't have had a mocha so late. I'm like twitchy. So twitchy. Oh. Don't have mochas at 2 p.m. Whew. Glad I don't have to work tomorrow. Happy Sunday. Sunday. I like Sundays. I feel like I don't have to mentally do anything. Although, I did start my classes this week, so I have a lot of studying I have to do, which is all right. I'm not mad about it. Of course, my first lesson, I didn't expect this, but my first lesson is basically what is a soul, what happens to your soul when you die, and necromancy. Sundays are good, but kind of boring, to be honest. Yeah, sometimes. You need one boring day a week, I think. It's good to be lazy every once in a while. I'm way too productive sometimes. Which is not a brag. It's just, I need to stop working sometimes. My brain shuts off. Today I went to church, and the pastor spoke completely in Korean, so I understood about 5 words of the sermon. So I just kind of zoned out. At least the Korean language is very relaxing, so at least that's good. Just sat there and relaxed and didn't study. It was really nice, actually. So, but as you can see behind me, I'm getting prepared to move. So there's like boxes and things. That's all trash, actually. And then my bookshelf is empty, except for some vitamins. Have you been learning Korean? No. I'd love to say yes, but I have a problem where I don't review. So I'll learn vocabulary words and then I won't review them and then I'll forget them in like 2 days. So I've done that for 4 years straight now. Grammar remains the hardest part of it. See, I'm actually okay with grammar. I'm terrible with vocabulary. And I'm terrible with vocabulary in both English and Korean. So my English vocabulary is actually lower than most English speakers. And it's my only language, so it's kind of sad. And I also write books, so it's kind of weird. But wave at people. I'm not allowed to wave at East Film, apparently, but okay. So, Yeah, I've tried a few different books for studying Korean. Like, I have some good books, but I'm just a terrible student. I have this book. This book's kind of fun. It's called Delicious Korean 31. And it's actually a recipe book in both Korean and English. So you'll have, where's a good one? Fish, let's see. Where's something I can pronounce? So you'll have things like bokkeumbap, and it'll be in English and Korean. And it has like the ingredients. You can read it that way. And then it has the actual recipe in Korean, and you have to like translate it. And then it has the grammar on the other side. So it's kind of fun because I like cooking. So, and I actually have a few other Korean cookbooks that I bought since I live in Korea. And I want to know how to use the ingredients here, because the ingredients are extremely different than American ingredients. So I have no idea how to prepare them. So I have that one. I have this book. I'm trying to translate it a little bit. This is a poetry book. And actually one of my English students wrote the poetry in here. So this is my Korean student, or my English student. He is Korean, but he is my English student. And he writes Korean and English poetry, so I bought this to try to translate. And I'm very, very slow at it. And I don't remember anything I read, but I just remember random words that are not useful words. So I'd like to say I'm trying, but I'm not trying very hard, really. I spend most of my energy writing and studying for my major, mainly because I pay for my classes. They're expensive. I don't want to fail. Failing is the worst when you pay out of your own pocket. So, I only got 4. Nice. Very nice. What are you all doing this weekend? How has your weekend been? I have no idea what I did yesterday. What did I do yesterday? Yesterday was Saturday. Is it sad that I have to check my Facebook to remember what I did? No, that's not useful. Saturday. Oh, I went and bought glasses. Not these. I bought new glasses. It rained a lot. Netflix. Netflix is good. Lockdown. Another lockdown? Thankfully, Korea hasn't done any more lockdowns. But I am moving to Seoul, so that's going to be crowded and kind of dangerous. So hopefully just kind of fizzles out soon. But do you guys have like mask mandates, or is that just the select few? Korea has mask mandates, at least Daegu does. You get fined if you're not wearing one in public. We also have like you can't have more than 4 people in an outing. So if like 6 of you go to a restaurant, they'll break you up. Which, I mean, you're already hanging out together, so the damage is done. I don't... Breaking up a group of people. It's still a group of people. So, still have them over here. Yeah, same here. Okay. Yeah, it's rough. It's not fun. It's so stressful. But it's exhausting on top of it. So, but it won't last forever. I have chocolate in random places. I buy just some random, you know the chocolates that you like melt down to make candy? I just eat it straight. I don't even bother melting it because then it becomes hard and it's not as good. So I just eat it before melting it. Why not? Although I really shouldn't. So, I got some questions here. Let's see. I gotta go through. Your necklace is really pretty. Oh, thank you! H&M. I like the moon. Matches my ring. Gotta be careful with my fingers there. It's a ring. It's also a moon. This is not focusing. There, kinda. Trying to be more fashionable these days. After I got laid off, I realized I hated all my clothes because they're all work clothes. I don't even like them that much. So I had to go buy a new wardrobe and some jewelry. Because I only had one necklace. Not this one, but... Let's see. Where am I? Questions, questions, questions. I don't know if you heard that. My neighbors are lively today. But it is Sunday at 9, so I can't be mad about it. Let's see. There we go. Here's my questions. Questions, questions, questions. All right, let's see here. Let's see. Lulu FXXX. That's a lot of X's. FXXX. Lulu FXX. Hi, I was wondering if you found the process of becoming an ESL teacher. Was it quite a long process? Did you find it difficult, and is it worth it? It wasn't difficult, but it wasn't easy. It actually, to be an ESL teacher in most places, well, in Asia. Yeah, to be an ESL teacher in Asia, you have to get a bachelor's degree and then an ESL certification. And you can get a bachelor's degree in whatever. So my bachelor's degree is in video game design. And then I did 12 weeks of ESL training, which I'm not really sure what I learned in ESL training, because basically every class was just like, hey, make a lesson plan, but then they didn't really tell you how to make a lesson plan. Maybe I'll tell you my system in a minute. But they just have you make a lesson plan every week based on a homework assignment, and it actually takes a while. So like I was taking vacation days just to finish all my homework, because I was also working full-time while I was getting my certification. So it only took like 12 or 14 weeks to get certified, but it was like an intense 12 to 14 weeks. I only had one grammar test. I mean, it was a hard grammar test, but it was just one. And still by the end of it, I didn't know any of the like grammar names. Like one of my students, or one of my previous students today, taught me what a past participle was, because I didn't actually know. So I didn't learn vocabulary from that very much. But yeah, I just finished it in 12 to 14 weeks, and it wasn't really difficult. It was just an intense 12 to 14 weeks. And then I got it. And actually, if you apply to like Asia, it depends on where you're from. Asia loves American speakers. Europe loves British speakers. So if you want to work in Europe, you'll probably only work part-time if you work in Europe, from what I hear, and it'll be more expensive to live abroad. So if you have any student loans, I would suggest Asia, because Asia will actually pay bank pretty much. So usually Asia will give you your own apartment. You don't have to pay for it if you work for the public school system. When I first came here, my school paid for my apartment as well. There was a housing allowance. So some of them just give you an apartment and you don't have a choice where to live. My company actually gave me like a housing allowance so I could choose where I wanted to live, and then they would pay a certain amount for me and I would pay the rest, which works out pretty well. You make pretty good money if you work full time. I think most people start with 1.2 million won, which is about $1,200 a month. No. 1.8, sorry. 1.8 or 1.9 million won. So almost $2,000 a month, and you don't have to pay rent. So, I mean, it's a pretty good deal. If you have student loans, come to Asia. If you have any sort of debt, come to Asia. If you don't, then you can pretty much work anywhere in the world and do pretty well. It's pretty fun. I recommend it. So, someone else asked me, let's see, about expenses every month. Yeah. Yoon, Alice, and Alia. I don't know if you're the same person, because one was on Instagram and one was on Wattpad, but both of you asked me about expenses each month in Korea. So if you pay rent, it'll be, well, in Korea, first you have to pay a deposit, and usually your school will pay your housing deposit, which can be anywhere from $5,000 to $10,000, but the school should pay for it, so you shouldn't have to worry about any of that. And then if you pay rent, which usually you don't have to in Asia, but if you pay rent, it can be anywhere between $400 and $600, which is really not that bad. It's not that bad, especially since I'm from California, and so we have to pay like $1,500 for rent. So that's terrible. But, and then the medical system in Korea is really, really good, so I don't have to pay too much. I probably pay like, I go to the doctor every week because I have like neck problems and stomach problems. So I go to an acupuncturist and a regular medical doctor almost every week. And I think I pay like maybe $50 a month or something like that. So it's not bad at all. Ow, almost died. For food will be the most expensive. It's actually really insanely expensive here. So it's like $400 to $500 a month just for food. So actually my grocery bill is higher than my rent here. So fair warning for that. And I live alone. So in America, I could get food for like a family of 3, and it was like $60 a week because it wasn't that hard. But here it's like super expensive, especially if you want any dairy, because there's no dairy farms here. So I bought cheese today for like $7, and it's like a little block. So, but it's all right. It's not bad. Vegetables are pretty cheap, so if you like vegetables, come on over, you'll be fine. Other expenses, there's not many. I think I pay, not including food, but I do pay rent. So my rent is like $200, because my school pays half. $200, maybe you're spending like $300 a month without food, and then it'll probably be about, I don't know, $600 or $700 total with food. But you make like almost $2,000, so you have a good $1,000 to put wherever you want if you work full time. So it's a pretty good deal. I can't think of a better setup, honestly. So let's see. Are you going to post this live as a video? Of course. Of course. Yeah, I know everyone can't join at the same time and time zones and things like that. So, yes, I will be posting this as a video on my Instagram, and I will probably be putting clips of the Q&A on my, YouTube. That other thing that I have, YouTube. Yeah, so I'll probably put clips up there too. Let's see, do you have any tips to get out of writer block? I'm having a major one for my story for a couple months now. A couple things that I usually do with writer block is I don't write in order. So, I will write a scene that is later in the book, or I'll just like skip to a next scene, or I'll even skip to the end sometimes. So if you do that, just write a scene that's later on. If you write a scene that's later on, it kind of gets the creative juices flowing. Also, something else I've done is usually if you're trying to brainstorm the next scene that's coming, and you're stuck, I usually do like the, what's it called? The like bubbles thing. So I'll do like I'll show you here in a second, possible plot ideas, and then I'll make like little bubbles like these, and I'll just come up with like crazy ideas. So I'll put some things that could happen, that would make sense, and then I'll do like some weird things that won't make sense, just to like get some ideas going. So I'll just make a whole bunch of those. That's what I used to do a lot when I was first starting. I would make all of these plot bubbles, and I would make like 15 plot bubbles, just trying to come up with something, and a lot of them sucked. And then I would just pick the best one, even if I didn't like it that much, and I would just see what would happen. So that was kind of helpful. So yeah, you can do it that way. You can go out of order. You can, I write outlines, and the way I write outlines is I'm usually like, okay, so this happened in the story, so what would make sense next? What are the characters' like main goal? What's the problem? They could possibly do this, but maybe this doesn't fit with their character really well because they actually really want this. So I'll just kind of write out my thoughts, and then something will eventually come. But it's a process. Like it doesn't just happen. Sometimes it takes me 2 or 3 days to just like brainstorm through and try to think of some ideas. And then I'll write a scene, and then maybe I'll throw it out later. So that happens too. But don't be afraid of that. Just keep going. The more you work through ideas, the sooner a better one will come. So, but if you just sit there and wait for the best idea ever, you're not going to write anything. So, take a garbage idea and see what you can do with it. So, because it might turn out better than you expect, or it might turn out worse, but you'll think of something else. So, I don't like the writing advice that tells you to like take a walk or something like that. That kind of gets on my nerves because I walk all the time, but that doesn't fix writer's block. To fix writer's block, you have to focus on your work. So, although fun fact, sometimes if you're just thinking too hard, you've been working too long on the project, your subconscious actually like works on a project when you're not. So if you rest or you sleep or you work on something else, your subconscious will work through some stuff. So that's happened to me a few times. I've had plot twist ideas while I'm in the shower, or while I'm playing video games, or if I watch like a Korean drama, I'll think of something else. So just try to work through what you can. Try to outline, try to do plot bubbles, try writing a different scene. That would be my advice. How do you write a good filler chapter? Well, first, you should not be writing filler chapters. Each chapter should have a definite purpose. When I was starting creative writing, what they made me do in my classes was it my classes or was it a book? Technically, I took a few classes. I can't remember. I learned it from somewhere. But they would make you write out like a name for the scene and then the goal for the scene. So you'd have to write out what the goal for this chapter is, what the goal for this scene is, why am I creating this scene? And it was actually a really good exercise to figure out what is the purpose of each scene. So if you write a chapter and you can take out the chapter and it doesn't affect the plot at all, it's a terrible chapter, throw it out. So the best thing is to make sure each chapter has a definite purpose. And so your different purposes can be either it helps the plot, or it pushes the character arcs. So it pushes the character in a certain direction. Or let's see, what's another purpose? It sets up a problem that needs to be solved, sets up a new problem, or it goes back to an old problem that needs to be solved. Is there any other good purposes? I don't recommend a scene that's just banter between characters, because that's actually not very interesting for the plot, because you want to keep the tension. So each scene should have more and more tension, no matter if it's for character development, plot development, or conflict development. Oh yeah, those three are good. Plot development, conflict development, character development. Yeah, okay. That should be one of the purposes for each scene or each chapter. So try to think if you can make a scene that will advance one of those things. And if you can't, I always recommend just wondering, how can I make the situation worse? How can I add more tension? How can I make a bigger loss for the character? So each of your characters should be afraid to lose something. So you have to threaten them with that. You either have to make them lose it, or you have to threaten them with losing it. So you have to figure out what's most important to them, and then either take it away or threaten to take it away. So that'll be the best thing for any chapter. Just torture your characters. Torture them emotionally, physically, financially, psychologically. That's your job. That's your job as a writer. To make imaginary people suffer. So, let's see. That explains why I get ideas from absolutely nowhere. Yeah, it's your subconscious. Your subconscious actually works pretty well. It knows what it's doing. Let's see. No, I don't want to type. There we go. There we go. All right. Let's see. What other questions do I got? I had another writing question from Venaliana? I don't know. I'm just going to say everyone's handle completely wrong. And I'm not going to apologize because reading is difficult. Let's see. How did you start on Wattpad and gained thousands of readers? Any tips on how to get followers? Love you. Well, love you too. Let's see. Wattpad. Wattpad is, actually, when I started on Wattpad, it was an experiment. So let me give you the story. So I wrote a story. It's actually on Wattpad now. I haven't finished posting it. It's called Double-Edged Magic. And I started putting it on Wattpad and then I forgot about it, to be honest. But I wrote this fantasy story about a castle magician that gets framed for black magic. And so they're going to execute him and he has to go and find the actual person that was casting black magic. And so I wrote that, and my boss at the time at my job, he was like, oh, my son could be your beta reader. And so I said, oh, that'd be really cool, because I knew nothing about Wattpad at this point. And so so my boss's son became my beta reader, and I gave it to him, and his son is like 12 years old at the time. And he read it, and he said, I really like the story, but I wasn't really feeling it between the main character and the love interest. And I'm like, okay, so a 12-year-old boy thinks that my romance writing sucks. So I was like, okay, fair enough. If a 12-year-old boy says that you need to work on your romance writing, then you need to work on your romance writing. So I actually started Wattpad as an experiment, because I wanted feedback on my writing from anonymous sources, from people I didn't know. So I decided I wanted to write a fan fiction. I actually wanted to write a fan fiction based on a video game that I played. And the video game, oh God, what was the name? Princess Debut. It's an old DS game that nobody played, but I thought it was really fun. And so I always wanted to write a fan fiction based on that game, but I never got around to it. And then at that time, oh, how long ago was that? That was like 5 years ago? 4 years ago? No, it's like 6 years ago. When did I publish that? The Seven Princes. Seven Princes. Show me the publication dates. I have no idea. That's not helpful. At least by 2018, so yeah, it was a while ago. I was still working at my old job, so that had to be at least 5 years ago, because I've been in Korea for 4 years. So 5 or 6 years ago, I started The Seven Princes as an experiment. So I did kind of a double fan fiction. So it's actually a BTS fan fiction, and it's a Princess Debut fan fiction, but that's not written anywhere. But so I wrote that, and I didn't really have a schedule or anything. I was just trying to write as much as I could, and I had a lot of fun with the story. So I actually ended up writing a lot. And then I got the idea for the His POV series from another video game that I played. So I was like, oh, that'd be really fun for this fan fiction. So basically I just did that whenever I had free time. And I just tried to post as much as possible. And it wasn't really popular at first, I feel like. But then I finished it, and I got another idea, because when I finished that story, I got the idea for Marriage of Inconvenience as a spin-off. And I was like, oh, that could be fun. And in my head, I thought the story would be like 20 chapters or something. And then it ended up being like 50 some odd chapters. So that gave me a lot of practice. But I think the reason I got, because right now we're up to over 8,000 followers. But it took a while. It took a while. It was not fast. And I think really just the key to getting followers is just being consistent. Because I'll be honest, I don't follow anybody on Wattpad. I don't really follow anybody. I don't really read a lot on Wattpad, if I'm honest. I'm actually really picky with what I read. So even in general, like even books I buy at the bookstore, I'm extremely picky. Usually I just read like classical stuff, because I like more of the philosophical fiction. So, but I've gone through a few things on Wattpad that I thought were pretty enjoyable. Or if I just needed a break and I didn't want to read anything, mind-breaking. But yeah, I think for Wattpad, if you want to gain followers, just be consistent. Also, finish your stories. I think a lot of people, what happens is they start a story, and then they write about 10 chapters, and they don't have enough followers, so they just quit. But the thing is, people won't follow you if you haven't finished anything. If you have like no commitment to your stories, then your followers won't commit to you either. So for me, the reason I was writing was to practice romance writing, because a 12-year-old boy said I sucked at it. So my main goal was not to get followers or to be popular or anything like that. It was just, I needed to practice. Because in my head, I was like, oh, I'm just going to practice this, and then I'm going to go write real stories. And then my first book that I ever published was The Five Princes, which is a rewrite of my fan fiction, The Seven Princes. So actually, it turns out that I really love writing romance. I didn't think I did. I thought I was a fantasy writer, but I'm not. So I enjoyed playing with it. But I think, for the record, I wrote the first book that I wrote, Double-Edged Magic. I wrote The Seven Princes. I wrote Marriage of Royal Inconvenience. I think I wrote those 3 before I published anything. And then for my first book, Double-Edged Magic, I think I wrote that 3 or 4 times through a long period of time. So I had to write a lot of stories before I could finish something that didn't completely suck. Here's some advice for you. If you want to be a writer, just get emotionally prepared, because your first 2 or 3 novels are going to be complete garbage. And I say that with love, because when you're starting as a writer, you have no idea what you're doing. You have absolutely no idea. So the first few novels that you write are basically you trying to figure out how novels work. And so I wrote my first book like 3 times, and it still sucks. It's still terrible, because I was trying to figure out how all the puzzle pieces work together. And I got feedback from people and everything, and it was still terrible. So it wasn't until like my 4th or 5th time writing anything, full-length novel, that I finally kind of got the hang of it, and I was like, okay, this is how this works. But it's still really difficult. So don't feel disheartened if you finished your first story and it's complete garbage, because that's normal. So I hate to break it to you, but everyone who got published probably didn't publish the first thing they ever wrote, because the first thing they ever wrote sucked. And that's just normal. So you got to keep working at it. So I would say if you're on Wattpad and you want to gain followers, just keep writing. Finish your stories. Don't start a story and then quit halfway through because you have a better idea for something else. That's the worst thing to do. And you don't want to develop that habit, because you will take that habit into your writing career forever. Because that still happens to me too. So, fun story. Last year, my school closed a few times because of COVID. And so I had an idea for The Beast of Napa, which is a non-fan fiction story. But I had this idea for the story, and I was like, oh, I have to write this. And so I stopped writing Gods of the Sea for a little bit, and I wrote Beast of Napa, and I finished the whole rough draft of The Beast of Napa. But now I'm struggling to finish Gods of the Sea the way I'm supposed to, and it's behind schedule. So that was probably not my best idea. But I am happy that I finished The Beast of Napa, because that's more philosophical fiction, and I'm really excited. Well, Gods of the Sea is getting pretty close to... It's more like theological fiction, Gods of the Sea, because I kind of combined my theology class, because my theology class was about moralism and judgment of trying to be a good person as opposed to being a godly person. And so that kind of came out in Gods of the Sea. But I actually don't regret the timing. So I think everything worked out. But a bad habit to have is to get halfway through a story and then start another one. Usually what I recommend doing is doing like a mind dump. So if you have like a great idea for another story, write down all you can for like 1 week or 2 weeks, and then stop and go back to your previous story and finish it. Because I guarantee you, whatever story you're working on, you will eventually hate. So I always say, I can't wait to finish this story so I can go ahead and hate my next one. It's completely normal. So yeah, that happens a lot. You'll get bored with the story about halfway through, and that's a good sign to make the story more interesting, because if you're bored, that means that your readers are bored as well. So that just means you have to make it more interesting, you have to raise the tension, you have to torture your characters more, and that will help you the best. So finish your stories, and I guarantee you'll have more readers, because readers hate it when you start a story. At least I hate it when people start a story and then they never finish it, so I just never follow them, because they're not committed to anything. They're not committed to the stories, so I can't really, it kind of breaks the trust. I can't trust you, so why am I going to follow you? Why am I going to put energy into that? So I feel like my followers that I have on Wattpad, they follow me because, this is just my theory, but I think they follow me because I am semi-consistent. I try to post as regularly as I can, as life allows. I don't post every day because I have other responsibilities that I have to take care of first. I have a job, I have school, I'm a teacher, I'm a student, I have to take care of my health, things like that. But I try to post like once a week, no more than once every 2 weeks. If I do post, if I do need to like take a break, I warn people, and I tell them why. I try to take it seriously. So post regularly, once a week, once every 2 weeks, and finish what you start. And I think you'll get plenty of followers that way, because it'll show that you're serious about writing, you're serious about the story, and people will trust you more. So I would recommend doing that. That would be my recommendation. And what else do I got? I got lots of questions. I'm not stopping till I answer all of them. Were you scared when you moved to Korea, and how long did it take you to get settled in? I wasn't scared when I moved to Korea. I got scared after I moved to Korea. I remember the second day I was here. So the first day I just had jet lag, just complete jet lag. So I was too tired to be scared of anything. I was more afraid of the flight. I am not good on planes. I am not good on planes at all. I will cry uncontrollably on planes, even at my age. So I don't do well on planes. I'm claustrophobic and I'm scared of heights. And so, even Japan is like 1 hour from here. You can take a plane for like maybe $30, $40. It's super cheap and it's 1 hour. I still take a boat. I will not get on a plane. And a boat takes 3 hours. I'm like, I will get seasick before you put me on a plane for 45 minutes. So I remember the second day I got here, and I was just sitting at a cafe with my new coworkers, and I was looking out at Korea, and I'm like, I live in Korea now. An instant just like panic attack, just like full blown, just like I need to hold my knees and try to breathe like a normal person. Just full blown panic attack. And then after about a week, it wasn't too bad. The thing about moving abroad, it's really weird. So they warn you about this when you get your ESL certification. They'll say you'll get culture shock. And so that's like a period of time. I would say it's usually like 3 months, it might be shorter. Your mileage may vary, but you'll get culture shock, And it's basically just like you adjusting to a new country and all the little things. So for me, the biggest culture shock, you would think culture shock would be like cultural differences, like you worry about something being rude or not rude, but it actually, like, you already, before you get here, you kind of know socially what's rude and what's not, because you've probably researched that. What they don't tell you how to do is like everyday life. So for me, the hardest thing was like, how do I recycle? And how do I throw out garbage? And how do I go to a dentist? How do I buy new glasses? So that was like the most difficult culture shock for me, I guess you could say, if it's culture shock. It was just, I don't know how to be an adult in a foreign country, because I spent, so many years learning to become an adult in America, and then I came to Korea and it was kind of worthless. Well, not worthless, like you still have your character as a person, but you can't function. It's like being, I don't know if I can really compare it to this, but I will. It's kind of like being a stroke victim. And I say that because my grandma had a stroke, and you just kind of watch people like relearn how to do normal things. So it feels kind of like that. You're all like, I don't know how to go shopping. How do I get a grocery bag? Like things like that. That was the hardest part. And then you kind of just adjust, but you don't really fit in because you are still a foreigner. So you don't really feel like, I don't feel like a Korean, but I definitely don't feel like an American anymore either, because there's also reverse culture shock. So if you go back home, you have to readjust, because you learned how to be an adult in your country, and then you came to a new country and learned how to be an adult again, and then you have to go back to your country and kind of undo all of the learning that you just did. So I don't have reverse culture shock. I know I'll get it if I go back. But now it's just like, I don't really feel like I would be comfortable in America anymore, and I don't feel Korean. So you just kind of feel, permanently out of place. And I have another friend that has the same problem. So he's from Canada, and he moved to California. So it's not even like he had a really big culture shock. He didn't have a big culture shock. He didn't have like a language problem, nothing like that. But he still doesn't know whether or not he tells me like, Canada doesn't feel like my home, but California doesn't feel like my home either. And I have the same feeling. So like, California doesn't feel like my home. It's my hometown, but it doesn't feel like my home anymore. I used to live in Tennessee. I love Tennessee. If I ever move back to America, I will move back to Tennessee. But that doesn't really feel like home. And then I've been in Korea. That doesn't really quite feel like home. Like, if I use the word home, I use the word home for 3 different places. So everywhere is home and nowhere is home all at once. So you kind of feel comfortable and uncomfortable everywhere you are. So to answer the second part of your question, get settled in. I'm still not settled in after 4 years. I don't feel like a Korean. I don't feel like an American. I feel like a vagabond. So I am definitely an immigrant in Korea. And I don't speak Korean, so I feel terrible about that, because I just can't learn languages. I've tried. They just don't stick with me because I'm not consistent enough. So, but I would say, if you move abroad, just be prepared to feel a little bit out of place. And that's not a terrible thing. I think because I feel a little bit out of place, it's not a terrible thing, because I'm really grateful for what I have anywhere I go, and I'm really grateful for time spent with good people, because when growing up in America, you would try to make friends that would last forever, And sometimes you can, but it becomes harder and harder to say goodbye. And I've learned living in Korea to just enjoy people in the moment, because relationships just can't last as long as you want them to, especially when you're a foreigner or you live in a foreign country. So you just kind of learn how to appreciate what you have in the moment. You appreciate relationships you have in the moment. You don't have any expectations for those things. You just appreciate it and you enjoy it. And so I think that's actually a benefit, because I never had that when I was living in America. So now I'm still sad when like my students leave. I still get really sad if they have to move to another city. I'm still really sad about that, but I've just learned how to appreciate people in front of me when they're in front of me. So yeah, so if you move, don't be scared about feeling out of place, because you trade it in for other good things. So, and also I'm more confident in just being myself, because I've just realized that trying to impress people or pacify people that come and go whenever they feel like it is not worth my time. So I feel much more comfortable being myself, and not rude to people or anything like that, but I just don't feel the need to impress people or try to get people to like me so they stay, because I know everyone leaves eventually, so I don't worry about it. So I'm more comfortable with myself, and more because I'm comfortable with myself and I'm not rude or bitter about it. I feel like other people are comfortable with me too, so my students like to hang out with me. So I definitely recommend everyone live abroad for a little bit, just to get outside of yourself and get outside of your comfort zone, if you can. You should move somewhere new, just to get a new perspective. Let's see. I'm good at coming up with let's see, Shadowhunter. I'm good at coming up with a start and an ending for my books, but I find it difficult to get from A to B. Do you have any tips? That is normal. That is absolutely the major problem of being a writer. And you'll still have a drawer full of beginnings and a drawer full. Usually endings are the easiest. That doesn't mean they're easy. Endings are the easiest. Middles are the devil. And starts are okay. To get from A to B, I would say practice, number one. And along the same lines of writer's block, don't try to write linearly. That was my biggest problem when I tried to first write a novel, is people will try to write in order, page 1 to page 300 in order, and that's what makes them get stuck. I recommend when you start a story, you usually have a beginning in mind, usually have an end in mind, or some vague idea of an end. And then you usually have some scenes in the middle sprinkled. I recommend writing out all of the scenes that you have in your head. And it doesn't matter where they are in the story. So write out, if you have the first scene, write out the first scene. If you have a middle scene, write out the middle scene. You can write things out of order. Don't write things in order. I actually don't recommend doing that, because you will get stuck, and you will realize later in the story that you want to change a whole bunch of things. So yeah, just write out of order. Don't write in order. And then once you write all the scenes that you have in your head, think about your characters and how they would get from that point to the next point. And usually the way that your characters get from point A to point B has something to do with what will they lose, and what do they want, and what bad decisions are they making to get what they want. So make your characters make some bad decisions, because we're all human and we all make bad decisions. And that usually makes the plot thicken. But you have to, here's the trick with fiction. People in real life make bad decisions for no good reason. It's usually something like panic. You make a bad reason because of panic, or you just say something wrong, or your perspective's a little off. But in fiction, you have to be more thorough with it. So you have to think about, what is the character's worldview, and why would they make a bad decision? It has to be something that the reader understands. Like, oh, I would make the same decision, or, oh, I can see why they made that decision. And that will usually make your plot thicken a little bit. And then the characters have to undo what they've done. Or it makes the plot worse, and so the characters have to fix something. So usually plot should be characters screwing up something. Should be they're screwing up something, or they just need to fix something that got screwed up. So try those things. Try the brainstorming. Try the bubbles. Same thing for getting to point A to point B. Think of character motivations. Character motivations will always be number one. So always think about character motivations. What do they want? What are they willing to do to get it? What happens if they don't get it? And what bad decisions do they make trying to get it? That's plot. That's all of it. So that should get you from point A to point B. And you can also just throw in, like, the side characters doing something wrong. So you have to think about your side characters and the four things as well. So what do they want? What are they willing to do to get it? What bad decisions do they make? Because that'll affect your main character as well. So you have to think about that for the main character, the characters around them, any side characters, especially the antagonist or the... I don't want to say enemy, because when I write stories, when I have an antagonist, they're usually not just evil. I think the Seven Princes was kind of an exception. They usually have some sort of reason and goal and something like that. For the Rebellion, there's no actual evil person. It's just the two main. It's the girl it's the main girl with her goals, and then the other guys with their goals, and they all conflict. They become each other's enemies, even though none of them are exactly evil. So you have to think about those things, and that will make it easier, not easy, but easier to get from point A to point B. And let's see. What else do I got? Oh, let's see. TXRAM Misu. Trexa Misu? Nope, I don't know how to say that. How long does it take you to develop your characters before you start writing a book? I actually spend maybe one day. I really don't like doing character development before. What I usually do is I write one page about the characters. Each character, honestly, I write one paragraph about each character. So I write, what is their kind of general personality? So when I wrote Gods of the Sea, I literally just wrote, I wonder if I can find it. I'm going to find it. I'm going to read you exactly what I wrote. And I changed this so many times, to be honest. Because I got halfway through the story and I was like, no, I kind of really don't like this character idea, so I'm just going to change it. Here it is. So I'm going to read you. Let's see. Yeah, there's exactly one page that explains everybody. Everyone has one sentence. So the main character is the governor's daughter. She's proper, sexy, mysterious, and well-bred. She knows all the tricks of the political trade. I never used that in the actual story about political trade. I decided later to make her more like a Southern belle. So that was all I wrote about the main character. And then I wrote she's engaged to someone that she doesn't get along with, one of the main characters. If you read my fan fiction, it would be Taehyung. I wrote that she's married to Taehyung. Didn't use that. He's boring and cold, and he doesn't like her much either. He has his own reasons for agreeing to the marriage. Totally changed that. By chapter 2, you realize that she's engaged to someone's father, double her age. So I didn't even use that. But I switched out Taehyung for Seokjin, and he is kind of boring and cold, but I made him dark later. The opening of the story is her 21st birthday. At the party, she meets a pirate captain, not realizing who he is. I didn't write anything about the pirate captain at all. Let's see. I put the main character and her fiancé go to his home country by ship, and then they're attacked and overtaken by pirates. Nope, didn't use that either. Hello. I didn't use that either. I had her kidnapped at her birthday party. And then the pirate captain's older brother is bitter towards his brother for his reckless behavior. I kept that. That's it. That's all I wrote about him. And then there is a ship worker, and he's planning to take over the ship. There's a hidden treasure. Something the pirate captain wants that only the main character can provide. I wrote, we can make this one more of a fantasy. Some kind of mythology involved would be really fun. Maybe it could be more like the movie Sinbad, if you've ever seen the movie Sinbad. I like that kind of fantasy. Humans and gods living in the same realm, pirates trying to take treasure from the gods. So I kept that kind of in the story. So I kept the Eros. If you don't know, Eros is the name for Cupid, the god of love. And so I made a stone that was based off of the god of love. And originally, I was going to have it kind of control people's emotions. But then I changed it to control, to be a representative of free will in the spiritual realm. So I changed it completely. I didn't even do any of that. So I changed it to free will to kind of go with the theme of morality and what is good and what is evil. Because in Christian theology or philosophy, whatever you want to call it, Christian theology, God allows free will, which is why people are evil. And so I wanted the Eros to represent free will that God allows his creatures. I put maybe let's see. What else did I write? I wrote, maybe one of the characters is a god that needs to marry a human for some reason. He could have hidden powers or be part of the crew. The pirate captain and older brother are looking for the Book of the Gods or some kind of healing treasure. I replaced that with the Eros. Something that the gods created to cure all things. Maybe a type of stone. Okay, so I wrote maybe a type of stone. And then descendant. They overthrow the ship to get... Oh, I put one of the male characters as a descendant of someone to guard the stones. I changed that to the main character. The main character is the descendant of the guardian of the stone. And I also wrote that she's the governor's daughter. I changed that too. Because I used governor's daughter because if you read a lot of... I think I got it from Sid Meier's Pirates. That's another video game that I used to play. In Sid Meier's Pirates, your job is you are a pirate, and you have to go get information from the governor's daughters. So I guess in my head, I wanted to kind of copy that. And that's it. That's legitimately all I wrote about my characters, and I used none of that. I used absolutely none of that, except for the older brother of the pirate captain who is bitter towards his brother for his reckless behavior. That's the only thing I actually used. So for me, when I write a rough draft, I try to get to know my characters through the rough draft. I don't actually do character development before. I try to kind of do what does this character want, and what are they willing to do to get it, and what problems do they have getting it. Those are like the only 3 things I kind of think about, but I usually change them too. Because the problem is what people do is they spend so much time like trying to get their characters exactly right. And they do really weird things. Like they're all like, they spend like all this time making a Bible of like, what is their eye color and their height and hair color. And to me, that's not really important. So I don't spend any time on that because it really slows me down. I want to jump in and try to get to know who is my character, what do they want, because usually their personality changes completely, and then their goals change as I'm writing. So I don't recommend doing it, but I don't like writing out too much because I feel like if I write too much of an outline of my characters before I start, then I'll try to stick to it too closely, and I won't allow my characters to kind of grow organically. So I wouldn't recommend spending a lot of time on it because you're going to change it. And then I use my editors to make it consistent. So if I say like, oh, this character has brown eyes in one scene and then they have blue eyes in another scene, my editor usually picks that up. So I try not to think too much about it. But by the time you get to the end of your first draft, you have a very strong picture of your character. And so usually when you go back to edit your second draft, you're like, oh no, that's wrong. That's not how they look. Or that's not how they act, or that doesn't make sense for their character. Or they don't, I don't want to say they don't change, because sometimes you have flat characters, but they don't change a whole lot. But yeah, I literally just write like 1 or 2 sentences for each character, and then I apparently throw that all away by the end of the first draft. So yeah, I just write things to kind of get started, and then I just go with it and see what happens. And then I usually just change it. And then you actually, when you're writing, you learn a lot about your characters when you're writing. I don't know how to explain this, but I have actually had plot twists that surprised me. Because you start writing and like I said, your subconscious actually does a lot of good work for you. You don't have to, the extreme details that you're like really impressed with when you read a book, you're like, oh, like this really like foreshadowed this, and this is such a great detail. The writer probably didn't even think about it because you write with your subconscious. And so my subconscious is always at work, and it'll pick up things for me, so I don't have to stress too much about getting it perfect the first time around. Usually when I go back, I fix things because it doesn't make sense. But yeah, I just write a couple sentences and then just go and see what happens. Because I end up changing so much that I don't want to spend too much time. I don't want to waste time trying to make a Bible. Although I would recommend, if you write a series, I would recommend to keep notes on who is who and how does the world work and what is their background. Because if it's easy to catch character inconsistencies in a single book, it's really hard to do it across multiple books. So if my character is inconsistent from chapter 2 to chapter 6, I'll notice and I'll fix it. But if my character is inconsistent in book 1 to book 5, I'm not going to notice it. It's going to be too far apart. And don't even pretend that you can remember things about your characters, because honest to God, I forget my characters' names 35% of the time. I have no idea what my characters' names are. So I just forget. As soon as it goes on paper, it's gone. So it's in my head, and then I put it on paper and it's gone. I have read The Five Princes since publication. I published it last year. I spent 2 years writing the first draft. I spent another 2 years writing the draft for publication. And then I read parts of it recently, and I had no idea what some of the plot points were. I was like, what does happen next? So that's what being a writer is. So that's why I would recommend keeping notes after you finish a draft or as you write a draft, but you're going to change stuff. You're going to change a lot of stuff. So I wouldn't spend, personally, I don't spend a lot of time planning before I write. I just kind of dive in and then plan as I write, or I'll write like a couple chapters and then I'll plan the next 5, because everything always changes. But everyone is different. Some people can just write full outlines of everything and then stick to it, and I don't know how they do that. And also other people are on the other end of the spectrum and they'll plan absolutely nothing and just jump in and pretend not to get stuck, I guess, because everyone gets stuck. It doesn't matter what system you use. You're going to get stuck. That's being a writer. You're going to get stuck. So I would say just when it comes to planning your characters, just plan as much as you need to get started. And that's it. I don't learn all of my characters until I'm done. Let's see, did I miss any questions? I'm checking my Wattpad. I will be posting the live stream. Developing characters. Moving. Starting. A to B. Expenses. ESL Teacher. Monthly expenses. Starting on Wattpad. Okay. I think that's all my questions. All right then. And it's been an hour and 15 minutes, so that worked out pretty good. Oh, my throat. Do you like my gigantic water bottle? I live alone, so there's really no point in me using glasses at this point. Oh, at least the twitching stopped. Ooh, that coffee was intense. I felt my eyes twitching after I finished the coffee. And then my legs started cramping up, which was new. Never had that problem. But okay. So I gotta take it easy on the coffee, I guess. I'm not supposed to drink coffee anyways because of my stomach, but I wanted it. So now I'm suffering. But all right, well, I guess we can wrap it up for today. And I will be doing another live stream next month, another Q&A. It'll probably be in my new apartment in Seoul. So I will give you all a tour of my new apartment, which will take exactly 15 and a half seconds. So apartments in Korea are not massive when you live alone. So let's see. So you gotta pay for it. Sure. All right. So I guess I will see you guys next month. Think of some questions you want to ask me. and I will post this on Instagram for your viewing pleasure. And then, yeah, that's it. We'll do this again. Bye. See you next month. All right. See you next month. All right, guys. Take care. Take care of your health. Take care of yourselves. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, however long it is. And see you later. Peace.